Hey, welcome back. Good to see you. You can tell there's a swishy tail going on here. Uh, Mr. Possum is back and causing havoc. I'm sure he doesn't smell good to Looney, and I'm sure I don't smell good to him. So there you go. Anyway, I've enjoyed our topic this week. I hope you have too. This idea that each and every one of us has a spiritual beam being sent to us, like an individual ray of the sun that's committed entirely and thoroughly and fully uh, to each one of you and to each one of me, meaning that there's a signal that's always being sent, and a great adventure of life or a great misadventure of life is to see how much we can get on the beam or how much we can get off the beam. You know, I commented that the possum had an amazing homing beam to come back over, you know, half a mile away from where I deposited him a couple of days ago. Anyway, I think we all can tap into that signal. And yesterday we noted that there was somewhere between 4 to 10,000 religions currently on the planet, and that you better pick the right one. And because if you don't, uh, you're in big trouble. So that's not really the way that I see it. But we all have the opportunity to tap into this beam, and spirituality is whatever's working in the moment to get us in alignment. And it's interesting, even with all these individual religions, you can even take, let's just take Christianity for example. Over the last 2,000 years, how many different sects, SCCTS, has it subdivided into? And I'm not here to judge or to comment on any of them per se, but it's interesting how with one teacher and one teaching and one experience that happened a long time ago, how over 20 centuries it's divided into an amazing amalgam of different ways of seeing it, different ways of doing it. In fact, some of the SCC, I have a hard time saying sex because it sounds just like sex. That sects of Christianity, how some of them are actually sort of at odds with other sects of Christianity. Could you imagine? Seems like the message would be so clear, so unmistakable that that humans couldn't mix it up. But guess what humans are good at? Mixing things up, because we're all at different levels of spiritual understanding, obviously. I think any intelligent person recognizes that while the divine spark inside of all of us is infinitely and eternally, irrevocably equal, we're all divine, and there's no gradient of that. There is clearly a gradient of conscious contact. Anyway, with that in mind, you know, I'm part of a spiritual organization, and in the recovery movement, and even within that group, there's a host of people that do it this way, that do it that way. You go to some meetings, you got to wear a skirt and a coat and a tie, and you go to other meetings and you, oh boy, it's amazing. And so I think what's important to remember is that, well, you know what, you know who says it really well? I'm going to read about a page of Emmett Fox, and just listen, and tomorrow we can talk about what it says. But in this page of this book, Emmett Fox breaks down the Sermon on the Mount. And when Jesus says, you know, the day will come when your torment will be upon you, and you'll ask for me and I won't be there. It'll be as though I never knew you. And it's a strange and shocking statement. What does it mean? Okay. Emmett Fox says, you should gladly take advantage of helpful teaching wherever you may get it. Go to churches or meetings that help you. Listen to speakers and read books that inspire you to find yourself. But do not surrender to anybody but your own spiritual judgment. Thank those who have helped you and acknowledge the good received, but always be ready to pass on to the next step. Remember that the truth of being concerns itself with the infinite, the impersonal principle of life, and does not lend itself to the exploitations of particular personalities or organizations. Wow. You do not owe an atom of loyalty to anyone or anything in the universe except your own conscious contact, aka indwelling Christ, your own spiritual integrity. If merely enrolling oneself in the membership of some organized body were a guarantee of spiritual understanding, our salvation would be a much simpler matter than it is. Unfortunately, the problem is much more involved. So, if we're going to stay on the beam and not only get on the beam, but open ourselves, the conduit of our soul, to more and more of this love, light, and truth, this great beam of light, we have to be ready to recognize that when we need to move, when we need to grow, when we need to evolve, when we need to try something different, when we know that we're stuck and we're stagnant, because by the fruit we shall know. If we're not living in the lively, fresh today of spiritual experience, spiritual understanding, this is not to say we're not struggling or suffering by any means, but underneath all the worldly, superficial machinations, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, we know to the core of our soul, our GPS tells us whether we're growing and moving in the right direction. And that's the only thing that we owe any atom of loyalty to, because everything else in life will give way, everything that we're dependent upon. But if we do this consistent seeking and find the beam that's sent directly to you and the one that's sent directly to me, we will always be beautifully trending upward toward the infinite. Anyway, I look forward to talking to you about the beam tomorrow. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you then.